Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 26, 2016 regular business meeting of the Go Seal Township Board of Trustees. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, call the meeting to order at, let's make it 7:36. Mr. Posiask is excused tonight. Let's begin then with amendments to the agenda. And per request, I'd like to move action item 7, move that up to the first action item so our guests from the Cheshire and Thorpe Courts area can get home in time to watch the debate. Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by Clerk Ranka. Any comments on that? Those in favor of moving action item 7 to first on the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that will be amended. Any other amendments to tonight's agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. It stands amended then. With nothing else in the interim, now we'll take any brief public comment on tonight's agenda items. 2 minutes, introduce yourself, etc. Okay, last chance to get out of the drainage. Okay, with that, with none offered, we'll step to the consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer?
Sure. Bear with me. Request approval of consent agenda 16-044. That's the minutes of the September 12th, 2016 regular meeting, and a check register dated September 23rd, 2016.
Support.
Okay, moved by maybe the last breath of Treasurer Van Oss and seconded by Trustee Budney. Questions, comments on tonight's agenda? I'm sorry, consent agenda? None offered. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. The consent agenda is then approved. With that, we'll move to tonight's action items. And I got to shuffle my papers around. I think this is Mr. Budney's.
Yes, action item number 7 that is now number 1. Motion to award a bid to McNally Landscape, lowest bidder, in the amount of $48,485.77 for the Cheshire Court and Thorpe Court rear yard drainage project based upon the recommendations of the Charles E. Raines Company, Township Engineering Consultants, and the DPS Commission.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Budney, seconded by Trustee Smith.
And
Take it away.
Background on this is the DPS commission was approached by Mr. DeClaudio and some of his neighbors some time ago regarding flooding in their backyards. We looked, the DPS commission, a number of us off the commission went out and looked at it, along with Lorinda and John Keim, our engineers. And what we found was that for Cheshire, there are no outlets. When that court was built, there were no outlets to the storm sewer for them. So when it rains in the spring, it'll probably be late summer, mid to late summer before their backyards would dry out, because there was absolutely no place for the water to go. And that also then had an effect on some of the homes on Thorpe Court. So after looking at it, we came up with a plan to put in some outlets which would help drain that court. It is a plan that we are, like I say, we are putting in outlets. If any of the individuals want more drainage, they know that they can go to the to our drainage program to do more. But at least we're giving them with this project, we're giving them a place for the water to go. And believe me, I mean, how deep did it get in your backyards?
680.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking, a little water on the grass. We're talking fairly deep water, and it was definitely a problem that needed to be addressed.
So, Mr. Budney, and for the DPS drainage experts here, there is a drainage available on along Manchester.
Along Manchester, but not
accessed from that development.
Right.
So,
well, these courts. I mean, there are places on off of Manchester and courts off of Manchester that do have it. These courts, this court, Cheshire specifically, which again causes a problem for Thorpe Court, don't have it. So it's like we're putting in the basic for them.
Mm-hmm. And that drains east to the river, the stormwater
Yes.
drains. I'm looking at. I did a little Google Earth overhead. I'm looking at the dendritic patterns. There's my geography major again. The drainage patterns, and guess what part's the lowest spot? I mean, it is.
Yep.
It's right there between Thorpe and Cheshire Courts.
Yep.
You can see the drains on this particular photo. Gosh, it's a bad place to build. But if we didn't have access to the existing storm drains on Manchester, they probably should have been there.
Right.
And I think back to that 1,000-year flooding that Southeast Michigan had in 2014, and how fortunate we really had very little flooding because we had most of the drains in place, and this island drained very well. So, I suggest we keep it that way.
Yeah, when we do it, we seem to do it, right.
Mm-hmm.
This was something that was overlooked when this development was done by the builder, and these people have been paying for it, I'm pleased that they brought it to our attention, and that we've come up with a plan to help them.
Okay, it looks like it needs to be done. Any other questions, comments from the board?
Just really briefly, sure. I mean, we've got a fund in place for this exact type of problem. We've got residents with a problem, and we've got a means to address it. So I'm happy we're making this problem go away.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay, I see none offered. All right, with that, those in favor of approving the award of the bid to McNally Landscape, the lowest bidder, in the amount of $48,485.77 for the Cheshire Court and Thorpe Court rear yard drainage project, based on the recommendations of the Charles E. Raines Company, our engineering consultant, and the DPS Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. We'll get to work on it. You're welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay, with that, we'll go back to the old number one action item. Requesting the Grosse Ile, we have two options here, and I'm going to request we go to the second one, which completes the whole transaction in one motion, and lets Mr. Stempian get on with his life, and lets us divest some property that isn't doing us a bit of good. So, requesting the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees authorize the Township Attorney to prepare and enter into a purchase agreement for the sale of lots 379 and 380, Grosse Ile Manor subdivision, in the amount of $40,000 or greater with the Stempian party, subject to the following. The agreement shall address the state of Michigan legal requirements for the sale of the tax reverted property. All reasonable and applicable fees shall be paid by the purchaser, and the agreement shall address the appropriate hold harmless requirements protecting the township. And furthermore, the township attorney and the township manager are authorized to close on the sale subject to the terms and conditions as outlined in this motion.
Support.
Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. This was our discussion item at the last board meeting. We pretty much peeled back the onion, but the short version is Mr. Stempian had been maintaining a tax reverted lot. The township owned the lot. It was off the tax rolls. It was in It was not particularly desirable in appearance, but the neighbors had kept it up as best they could at their own expense. Mr. Stempian wanted to buy it. It'll get back on the tax rolls. The purchase price will go to Township, Wayne County, and a good chunk to the schools. We've got the price down to about through two, both through assessments and comparison appraisals. We've got the price to where it ought to be. And I think I don't consider one of our core competencies property management. I'd like to get this in the hands of the private landowner and let him make it more of a neighborhood appearance and add it to the tax rolls. Questions, comments from the board? Yeah, we beat this up pretty much at the last board meeting.
Just say, yeah, I think this is the right thing to do. The resident wants it. He's going to take care of it much better than we will be able to. So I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? Again, we beat this up pretty good last time. Okay, those in favor of, it'll be the longer of the two, authorizing the township attorney to prepare and enter into a purchase agreement for the sale of lots 379 and 380 Grosse Ile Manor subdivision in an amount of $40,000 or greater with the Stempian party, subject to the following. The agreement shall address the state of Michigan legal requirements for the sale of tax-reverted property. All reasonable and applicable fees shall be paid by the purchaser, and the agreement shall address the appropriate hold harmless requirements protecting the township. And furthermore, the township attorney and the township manager are authorized to close on the sale subject to the terms and conditions as outlined in this motion. Let's see. No, we don't need a roll call vote for this. Those in favor of selling this property, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? Well, get your checkbook out, Mr. Stempian. Move on to, thank you, by the way, action item number 2. Clerk Ranka.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to adopt the attached resolution for adopting Municipal Employees Retirement System of Michigan, commonly known to as MERS, defined benefit program for POAM employees hired after April 1st, 2016 to a 2.5% multiplier, 53 over 25, V-6, FAC-3, E2, COLA 2.5% non-compounded with a maximum employee contribution of 3.25% and to exclude lump sum payments attributable to the member's personal service rendered during the FAC period.
Okay, moved by Clerk Ranka. I'll support it.
So I'll read the history here, and then maybe either Dale or Ann can give us the layman's code of it. But it's essentially what it is we're going back to trying to limit the long-term liability with all new hires for the township. So the history is on September 26th, which is tonight, if the Township Board approves to adopt the agreement between the Township of Grosse Ile and the Grosse Ile Police Officers Association of Michigan, POAM, dated April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2022, which is included in the above retirement benefit change for all new POAM hires hired after April 1st, 2016. Attached is the required resolution for this change. The estimated cost for each new hire is approximately at 10.43%. So, Ann, if you want to give us a quick synopsis.
Sure. One of the things when we were doing negotiations was that we realized that there's unfunded pension liability that needs to be resolved, and it didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to go away overnight. But what we're trying to do, and what we did with our TPOAM, which is our administrative maintenance / unit of the TPOAM, we reduced their benefits, so new hires are getting put into a different tier with a different multiplier. And so it's costing the township a lower percentage rate. Currently, we are paying about 38% of a police officer's wage at the current retirement system level. So what this does, and MERS requires you to do this so that non-funded liability doesn't get any bigger, and this way we're going to a lower multiplier. Currently, it takes the average person 28 and a half years to reach retirement and at 80%. What this multiplier does is actually take someone 32% for their final average compensation to reach 80%. So like I said, currently, years. So currently, we're paying 38%. Under this new plan, we'll be paying about 10%, which is about a $19,000 saving per every new employee that's coming into the unit. Per year. And also, one of the big things was currently when someone retires, we include all their banks, their vacation banks, their comp banks, their sick banks. What that does at the end of their retirement career is raise our costs because we didn't fund it the entire period because MERS is only funding us on an actuarial basis. And then when we pay out these lump sums, it changes the calculation. It creates this unfunded liability that we didn't pay for during their career. So what this new retirement plan does is also eliminate the lump sum payment. So basically, their retirement is based on their final year's average compensation. This has been done across the state ever since Schneider implemented some of these that we need to be aware of unfunded liabilities. This was the road we were going down. And like I said, this will help tremendously. It's huge over someone's lifetime. Based on simple calculations, it's about a $500,000 cost to the township if we adopt this over what we currently have.
So just in a nutshell, right? So when we hired one of the managers recently, we put him on a very similar plan to this. Then when we did the non-police officers union, we implemented that in that contract, and this is really the final contract to enable this. And really, what this is a way to, like I said, limit our long-term liabilities within the township.
Correct.
So it's
and this position is not the other administrative situation was actually the multiplier was lower. The reason why this one is a little bit higher is due to the fact that public officers do not receive Social Security. So we do not pay into Social Security. So this is truly their only benefit for retirement.
So that explains the 2.5% multiplier.
Correct, against the 1.5.
Against 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a big move from the managers in the township from the other union and now from the Police Officers Association with the contract that we're going to review here in the next agenda item.
Other questions, comments? Again, this is as you brought up, we had to have this different retirement program because of the increase in the multiplier. Did any of the early retirement or any of that change? Was that the same across the board?
No, all those were the same. It was just the multiplier and the final average compensation were the big items.
Okay. The past 3 years, 53 years, and age 53 and 25 years, all that's the same?
All that remained the same. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on this? This is the final step in getting some portion of our long-term liabilities under control. Okay, if none offered, those in favor of adopting the attached or the discussed resolution for adopting Municipal Employees Retirement System of Michigan Defined Benefit Program for Police Officers Association of Michigan employees hired after April 1st, 2016 to 2.5% multiplier, 53, age 53, 25 years service. V6, what is V6?
A vesting period. A 6
6-year vesting period.
Yep.
Final average compensation for the final 3 years. E2.
Which is the COLA 2.5 non-compounded.
Okay, that's where that number. COLA 2.5% non-compound, with a maximum employee contribution of 3.25%, and to exclude lump sum payments attributable to members' personal service, which would be sick time
And comp time and vacation
time rendered during the final average compensation period. With that, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Well, making progress.
Okay, action item number 3.
Nice job.
I move to adopt the agreement between the Township of Groseal and the Groseal Police Officers Association of Michigan, dated April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2022.
Support.
So the last several months, Ann and Dale have been negotiating with the police officers union for the next contract. The current one is actually, I think it's currently expired. So they've been going through, and I think probably the best way to go, rather than going through the entire contract, which is quite lengthy, it may be, Dale, if you could go through kind of the highlights of the, where the sticking points were and where we've now got resolution.
That tall, I just seemed awfully low. Thank you, Clerk Ranka. I'll go over the highlights. Obviously, the board's familiar with a lot of this from our discussions, but I obviously want to at least communicate to the residents. From board perspective, when we met last time, we talked about items such as the two-tier retirement system that we just discussed at the previous action, a new higher pay scale, wage increases, healthcare expense, shift differentials, and then just various language issues. We were back and forth with the union between 1.5% and 2% pay rate increase, and in the spirit of cooperation, we are at 1.75% on an annual basis. This is proposed to be a 6-year contract. The items that were discussed in greater detail after the meeting, and I had comments from the supervisor and Trustee Budney, specifically on the shift differential and things of that nature. So when Ann and I went back and met with the union later that week, we were able to come to terms on some of these items. They agreed to drop some things, and et cetera, which is how negotiations work. So we're requesting that you take action on this. The union had an internal meeting last week and approved this as a tentative agreement. And as Finance Director Darsnick said, that the savings per new hire were near $19,000 and some change, almost $20,000 a year. So the main question I'm sure people are asking or wondering is, well, what does this contract cost us per year? It averages, because things change, $52,000. So we know we're going to be hiring over the next 6 months or sooner 3 different personnel in the police department for those that are leaving. So we're going to be ahead of the game a little bit. It worked out that way. Obviously, that is an estimate, because there are additional things that we're just a little frustrated to try to roll into that computation, and I'll get to those shortly. So, as I stated earlier, it's a 6-year contract with a 1.75% pay increase on an annual basis. First year would be a market adjustment for the animal control officer, and that's first year only at 3.5%. The new retirement program for new hires was discussed in the previous action. The health care expense was increased from $300 allowance to $1,500. And then we had numerous language amendments that we had a tentative agreement on, and I'll go over those, which are Section 12.4, that is the retirement paragraph, which created the second tier. Section 15.5, when an employee meets with management, whether there's an issue or discipline, the contract currently states they have to meet with one of the stewards. We added the language "or someone from the executive board." It just gave them more options due to the scheduling and shifts. Section 16.5 is the shift selection. Will be based on seniority every 6 months. Currently, the assignments are made by management, so we're offering it to the senior employees first. And of course, coming along with that, if you're going to allow that, you need to have some administrative discretion. So Section 16.27 is language that says if there need to move people around, it can be done. Currently, Section 17.3, education training call-in, the employees get 4 hours, and the types of trainings don't even take that long. So the union agreed to 2 hours as well. We added the term step children or step parent to the funeral leave allowance. The wages under Section 27.1, as I stated earlier, 1.75%. The wage steps, currently it's a 2-year step. The union agreed to the 5-year step. So a new employee takes extra time. We increased the pager allowance by $300, and the Section 2710 was the health care expense that I mentioned earlier. We eliminated the language at chief's sole discretion, which had to do with scheduling. And then the guidelines for use of vacation was amended to reflect the actual practice that takes place in the department. And Section 27.4, we added Patriots' Day as a holiday. I had some discussion with some of the trustees shortly before the meeting, and I guess I'll extend an apology. I was asked, why didn't I not give you the complete contract? I want to go on record. These are the changes to the existing contract. It's a large document, and if I knew that was an expectation, I would have done so. But I assure you these are the changes. So if there are any questions, I will gladly try to expand my explanation.
So I think maybe it's important to kind of go through the overall process, right? So it's not something that happened overnight. It's happened for quite some time, right? So all parties involved, the union, Chief Porcerelli and his leadership staff, and the Township Board, and obviously Dale and your staff go through and all put your wants into wants and needs into the contract, right? You go through, negotiate things out. We had one or two study sessions on this at the board level, and the last one was in the previous, just before the previous meeting, where you guys were pretty close to a tentative agreement. You're down to a couple different factors, so the board gives you kind of direction on what we think we would like, and now it's here in front of us with with the all the changes for us to either approve or reject. For me, and I get to see a lot of the day-to-day, a lot of this stuff doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but when you're running a 365-day a year, 7-day-a-week operation that doesn't stop for anything, you need a lot of this flexibility that the new contract gives both parties. So I think it's a good contract, and I'm excited that we've got it here in front of us.
Thank you, Clerk Rank. Other comments from the board? Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Eric, you mentioned that the wants and needs were brought forward, but as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't ever asked what my wants and needs were representative of this board. We had one study session back on the 12th, and I'm not disagreeing with what's in this contract, because I think that this seems fair. My issues are basically with how this has transpired. And once again, I feel like my back is against the wall and I'm forced to vote on something because something else hinges on it. And this is a 6-year agreement that costs the taxpayers a lot of money. And I do believe that we should have been given the entire contract. And I can't, in good conscience, vote on something I haven't read word for word on every page. Even though it might be 40 pages, in this particular agenda, there's 25 pages on the property sale, but 6 pages dedicated to this contract. So I just can't vote for this, and this is not in any disrespect to the police department, the police commission, or any police officer on this island. I have to draw a line, and I know that my term is coming to an end, and maybe I'm getting a little bit more brazen, but I feel like administration sometimes puts us up against the wall so that we have to vote on something. And that's where I stand on this.
Well, I had no intention of putting any of the trustees against the wall. I know the very first meeting we had, maybe it was February, March, before we started our contract negotiations, the number one priority was to lower our long-term liability related to retirement. And this was the last group that agreed to adopt a second-tier retirement system for new hires. So it took time. I think the last contract we went through a lot of healthcare changes. So we're consistently following our plan of action. And if I didn't communicate well to the board, then my apologies.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Supervisor?
Mr. Budney?
Yes. I'm afraid I have to agree with Trustee Smith on this. I say and afraid simply because I hate to put the police in a hold them back in any way. This is something that we've been trying to get done. But like Mrs. Smith, and this is what bothers me. This is not the first time we've had a contract before us to vote on that we haven't had the contract, and it's something that I've mentioned numerous times before. We're responsible to the people of Groseal, and when we vote on a contract, we need to know what that contract is. It's nice that we have the highlights of the changes, but we should be looking at that finished product, having the ability to either read it or not read it. All too often we don't have the ability to read it, and we're asked to vote on it, and I too don't feel that I would be representing the residents of Groseal properly if I'm voting for a contract that I've never read. That's all I have to say.
So I guess the only thing I can add there is that, you know, any member of this board could have easily have requested a copy of the contract. In the last study session, I asked the specific question: do we need another study session before the next meeting, which was today, so that we could have scheduled that beforehand? And at that point in time, you know, it seemed like there was a consensus that the highlights that were covered were were within range. So no one said that they needed that discussion item to happen today. So I'm a little surprised at some of the responses we're hearing right now.
Well, as far as the contract, we couldn't have asked for it because it wasn't done yet. When the contract is done, you have a tentative agreement. Now is when we would get the contract and see what it is in total. It's nothing against, and I'm very hopeful that if I sat down and read it, I'd agree and be able to vote for it. It's nothing that you've gone over that I disagree with. It's a matter of I haven't been able to see the contract, and that's an important basic thing, and it should just be automatic anytime we vote on a contract, whether it's 1 page or 100 pages. The trustees should get the contract. If the trustee decides he doesn't want to read it, that's his or her option. If they're feel good about that, I myself like to know what I'm voting on.
And as a final comment from me, I mean, even when you read over the proposed legislation or the proposed motion, there's items in there that to me seem cryptic. I mean, even Mr. Supervisor had to ask what the V meant. So if we're looking about being transparent to the public, and the public sees V6, they have no clue what that means. No clue. So why wouldn't there be some sort of a key or something, or just spell it out?
Actually, the key is in the MERS for most of that. The V, they just listed it differently in the MERS addendum that we got at the study session the other night. I'm sorry, we'll discuss this in closed session. I've had those things iterated so that those looking at the action items at home would have an idea of what those terms were. Yeah, codified, but again, this is my second police contract. This is exactly the same way we handled the one of 3 years ago. And, you know, that nobody asked, when we had wrapped up our closed session, you asked if anybody wanted an additional study session. And I asked that anyone who had further questions on it, please see Ann or Dale. Let me finish. Before they go back into final negotiations, which I did, Mr. Budney did. I assume my questions were answered. I assume yours were
My questions were answered. Obviously, the only questions I could ask were based on our study session, though. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the contract before me.
Sat in his office and said, I support this.
I support what we talked. Yes, Dale, you're right, and I support what we talked about.
Did the rear yard drainage approval have a contract in your packet?
No.
All right, let's put a lid on this and get back to the gist of the situation. Nobody asked to see a final contract. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not the way we've normally been doing it. And to come up here at the board meeting and say, well, I don't see a final printed copy is just a change in direction, and it's a change of course. It's unexpected.
Well, I've always mentioned that we should be seeing contracts beforehand, especially after the most recent Splash Park incident. I think that, you know, when you're talking to the magnitude of dollars that this equates to, it makes sense to see it. And I think by photocopying 35 pages or 40 pages, however long it may be, just stuff it in there. It's a 5-minute administrative task.
Other questions, comments?
Yes.
Mr. Malvesto.
I just pretty much be repeating everything that both Lauren and Jim have said. I want to be very clear to the public. I'm not going to vote in favor of this. It has nothing to do with Joe Porcerelli, our chief. It has nothing to do with the police department, any of its officers, nor its negotiating team. A simple 45-minute to hour study session prior to this meeting would have eliminated all this discussion right now. It would have been nice to have a full contract. I'm not sure I could have read the entire contract and understood it all. But this package, as we received it, came at the end of last week with a bunch of chicken scratch on some notations. And so what the public has heard this evening is more than the Township Board has heard. There has been one study session involved with this, and which was 2 weeks ago. And I fully expected to have some sort of a study session prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay, Eric.
Those are my personal feelings, and I'll leave it go at that.
Clerk Ranka afforded the opportunity to request a study session. We certainly could have scheduled one. None was requested. I don't like the term chicken scratch. Those were initials that it was agreed by both sides of the negotiating party on those changes. One is the MR is Mark Relic, the DAR is Dale A. Ringham.
Ryan, a short period of time before this meeting would have eliminated this discussion right now. The courtesy of a half hour to 45 minutes to an hour would have eliminated all this.
Right, and again, the opportunity to request the study session was
What date
there.
was this? What date was the contract?
The police ratified it on the 19th.
And I don't know that any member of this. I don't know that any member of this board was made aware of that date, of the fact that something had been firmed up.
Okay, other questions, comments from the board? With that, I'm sorry, Mr. Treasurer.
And trying to got a lot to say, but no voice to say it with. So I'm going to say it with my vote. Any board member on this commission or on this board had ample time to vet and to question this program as it went through. This wasn't done in a vacuum. I sat in Ann's office every day. I sat with Dale every day. Every board member here had that opportunity. And if you're going to vote no because you have questions, shame on you. Because as a board member, you should have those questions answered before we got here. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Other questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to bring this to a roll call vote. And I'm going to vote first. Supervisor, well, I'm going to read it first. To adopt the agreement between the Township of Grosse Ile and the Grosse Ile Police Officers Association of Michigan, dated April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2022. Supervisor votes aye. Clerk Ranka?
Aye.
Mr. Treasurer?
Aye.
Trustee Budney?
Nay.
Trustee Smith?
Nay.
And Trustee Malvesto?
Nay.
Okay, motion does not carry. See you in 2 weeks.
Apologize for this, Joe. I apologize for this.
Okay. Clerk Ranka. Action item number 4.
Action number 4, to recommend that the Township Board approve the hire of Police Officer Gary Rouse, effective Sunday, October 2nd, 2016.
Support.
Okay, moved by Clerk Ranka, seconded by Trustee Smith. Background, or do you want to turn it over to Chief?
So I'll turn it over to the Chief, although I guess I've got maybe a procedural question here.
Yeah,
If we
I'm
don't
not
have
sure
a
how
contract,
this,
Yeah.
how
and
this
our
works.
next meeting is not now until
that-
October the 10th.
We agreed. He's in testing right now for his psychological and his physical. And we agreed that the next 3 hires, which would be the dispatcher and the 2 officers that we were short, would go under the new contract, go under the new MERS area. So I don't know how this works. I'll be straight with you. I don't know how it works if...
Don't have a contract.
No, we don't have a contract, so this is over. I mean, this doesn't go then. How does this... I mean, I don't know the procedural way to handle this. Do you cancel it? Do you delete it? Do you...
Well,
I mean, you can't vote. You could vote on it. The vote's no.
We've got a couple options, right? I mean, the most effective way is to vote on it or to amend it, right? So we could amend this that it would be, we could. This is the gentleman that we want to hire, and it's effective as soon as we can put an offer out to him as soon as we get the offer.
As
soon as we get the contract ratified, right?
Yeah.
So half the contract ratified. I'd rather not waste the time. We've already spent a lot of time on this. This is this candidate. We've already been losing too many other candidates because we've dragged our feet on this one. So what I would rather do is get this voted on tonight, and even if it's pending us the board ratifying our half of the contract, so that at least Mr. Rouse knows that that we want to extend an offer to him.
Are we able to, and again, a procedural question to the board, are we able to add to this that either a signed contract or memorandum of understanding that would agree to all the different levels? Because I'm not quite sure. I understand where they're coming from with the no. I mean, I get what no means, obviously. Is the question not what's in the contract per se, but maybe they're going another route. So does that mean, can we vote it on tonight if it's a memorandum on the new tier level or do you understand where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Could we make this effective upon, the contract being ratified or something instead
That's what
of
I'm
the
asking.
October 2nd?
Or a memorandum.
Yeah.
You mean the entire, because the memorandum would be if we're more concerned with the second level, because I'm going to tell you the truth. As the police chief, I got everything I wanted in this contract. I'm going to say we did a great job, but with Dale and Ann and myself working on our end, we hit the 4 points we needed to hit. And it's going to be a big savings to us in the long run, especially with some of those overtime issues. I know it didn't sound like a lot, but even the overtime where I got it changed for call-in is a lower amount. So the point is, if we're looking at more than just the MERS level of the new contract, then it wouldn't behoove you to say an MOI with it. I mean, do you see where I'm going with this? I guess.
I do. You have 3 board members here that could substantially change this contract.
No.
We don't know where they're going.
Okay.
So,
Ted, if I may.
you got to be careful here.
All right.
Because we don't know the direction. You got 3 board members here that don't agree to the contract.
Okay.
I will publicly say I have no issue with any of the items in the contract. I have issues with the fact that I didn't get to see and read the contract in its entirety. If I were to get that tomorrow, I would get back to somebody in 24 hours because I need to have that comfort level of just seeing the entire contract.
Okay.
I will publicly say I have no issue with any of the items in the contract. I have issues with the fact that I didn't get to see and read the contract in its entirety. If I were to get that tomorrow, I would get back to somebody in 24 hours because I need to have that comfort level of just seeing the entire contract. if I was asked by the member of the community, did you read that contract? And I said no. What do you think people would, you know what I mean? And yeah, I guess we can compare. Did we do it for the water? No. We didn't have a contract.
No, I mean, I
This is
understand
significant.
where you're coming from. I mean, I understand what you're trying to explain. I just don't know what can we do to this tonight, what you're voting on, that would help this matter in the future if we gave you what you're looking for the future. But as Ted said, the MOI for just that may not be it, because you may find something. Tom, you may find something, I mean, that you just don't like.
Well, I seriously hope not, because if
what
they're
I'm-
going to be truthful.
So here's what I'm going to suggest.
No, I mean, in
So-
the contract, something that we haven't looked at.
So here's what I'm going to suggest, right? I'm going to suggest that we make this we approve the hire of him effective, the township ratifying the contract, and I'm going to recommend we have a special board meeting next Monday night to go through the contract.
Fine.
That's good.
One agenda item is to ratify our contract. I don't want to wait till October 10th.
However, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm just asking. I didn't know the procedural issues.
So I've got the original motion, so I'll make my amendment right now, and the seconder can second it, and then we can vote. So my amendment is basically, rather than to approve that we hire Officer Gary Rouse effective October 2nd, that it's effective. Well, it would be effective October 2nd, pending the board's approval of the new agreement.
Support.
Yeah.
Mr. Renka, if we're having a special meeting on the 3rd of October, that's the next Monday, you want the hire to be 1 day prior to the contract?
No, it'd be
Third.
1 day. It'd have to be after.
Yeah.
Can't be before, because it would go into the old contract. That's not what I want either.
Yeah.
Upon approval.
That's not what I want.
Yeah. So then thanks for
So
pointing
the
that out,
special
Sharon.
meeting
So
prior to?
Yeah. So it would be that we recommend the hire of him effective.
Immediately upon
yeah.
ratification of the Police Officers Association Michigan contract.
Perfect.
Immediately upon ratification of the POAM contract. We'll call them at home.
And you're scheduling a special board meeting for Monday, October 3rd.
Well, that I was going to make that a separate motion, not to confound it with this one, so we could have some discussion on the
but
right
that's-
date.
I'm trying
But
to
yeah,
get it
that
for
would be
my
my intention.
Okay, looking across, how's next Monday?
Fine.
What's our availability?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I do have something to ask, though.
Go ahead.
I don't have the date, and it's been about a month and a half, maybe a bit longer. We did vote on behalf of a new officer,
The first gentleman?
the first gentleman, yes.
Yeah, that has to be rearranged too. We'll rearrange that too.
Is it possible in next Monday's meeting that both of these officers be approved for the hiring of both of those officers made next Monday's meeting? Is there language we can do?
I like the language we have right now, because we can at least talk to these officers and let them know that as soon as the contract's ratified.
I want
they're gonna
the
get
other
an
officer
offer.
to understand that.
Oh, I'll talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. Now, is there a problem if the legislative agreement says X date and we hire him the date after? Do I have to come back to you to hire them the next date?
Immediately upon.
Okay.
Yeah, we're striking
Striking the
Sunday.
day out.
Oh, you're putting the
October
day
2nd,
out, you're
2016,
saying.
and we're making it effective.
I misunderstood. I thought you had Monday in there, and so I understand. Because that's what Tom was saying. Can he be hired that night when we go to the meeting?
Correct. But
Yeah.
my question was really to the initial officer that we had.
That's the first
voted in
one,
favor,
yes.
The first one.
I got to talk to him, too.
Could he be hired?
He'll be
that
hired
night?
Tuesday then. The next one will be hired Wednesday then.
Yeah.
I can't hire him on the same date
Right.
for numerous
All right.
reasons.
It's important they're in
Just
the
want
same
to make sure
order.
that they're both aware that we want them as officers.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else?
No, someone needs to second my friendly
Second.
amendment, though.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Budney. All right. With that, gosh, where were we?
So the motion that we're talking about is we hire Gary Rouse effective,
Immediate-
coincidental with the
Contract
contract
ratification.
ratification.
Okay, we all know where we are with this. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Okay. With that, okay, I'll finish it up at the end of the meeting. Mr. Budney, something real exciting.
Real exciting. Motion to award the alternate bid to Suez Water Environmental Services, Inc., lowest bidder, in the amount of $35,803 for the mixer impeller replacement at the wastewater treatment plant based upon the recommendation of the Charles E. Raines Company, Township Engineering Consultants, and the DPS Commission.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Budney, seconded by Trustee Smith.
And the background on this, this is in the mixer. Joe Keefe, our wastewater treatment operator, brought this to the Commission's attention last year. The way the current blade in the mixer is configured, it allows for rags and other hard body material to build up on the blades. This causes the unit to be out of balance. Being out of balance, it causes it to tear up the gears. So every now and then we have to replace the gearbox. They found an impeller that a clean edge impeller that basically doesn't allow the buildup. It sheds that type of debris from it as it's mixing, so it can't build up. So the alternate bid includes, besides the impeller and shaft that was the bid, the alternate bid included a new gearbox also. And the township engineer, along with the wastewater treatment operator, and the commission, after talking about it, believes that the proper way to go is let's replace everything. The mixer was installed in 1999. It can use the new gearbox as well as the shaft and impeller. This project was on the capital improvements list since 2015 and has been budgeted for. The RFQ was published in August. They were received and opened, and the lowest bidder was Suez Water Environmental Services.
One question, maybe you can
Yes.
fill me in on this. Did we have the impression it said when stuff accumulated on that mixer blade that it threw it out of balance? So we can assume there's probably significant wear in that shaft, gear, and motor assembly.
Right,
So,
and the initially we were just going to the impeller and
just put a new blade on, a sharper
blade on
shredding
it.
blade.
Well, but it's I believe, and I haven't
A little
seen
more to it.
A little more to it, but it doesn't allow something to hang on a blade. There's an area in there that it will shed anything that catches on that. But yes, because of that being out of balance, it takes it puts wear and tear on your shaft, bends your shaft. It also grinds the gears. And
I'd hate to have the whole thing shut down again to replace a major assembly and maybe have some structural problems because of the thing.
Right, and that was our thought too.
Yeah.
Let's
fix
do
it right
now.
one
let's
time.
Fix it right now.
And it only cost an extra $16,000 or so to save a couple of days of shutdown.
And as I say, it was in the capital improvements budget, so it's not something that was sprung on us. We knew we had to do this.
The more I get, I don't want to say jammed into, the more I learn about wastewater handling, the happier I am with our system. And let's keep that. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay. With none offered, those in favor of awarding the alternate bid to Suez Water Environmental Services Incorporated, lowest bidder in the amount of $35,803 for the mixer impeller replacement at the wastewater treatment plant, based on the recommendations of the Charles E. Raines Company, our engineering consultants, and the DPS Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? Okay, thank you, everyone. Well, let's get that fixed. Next, that completes our action items for tonight. Clerk Ranka.
Mr. Supervisor, there is an election coming up, in case you weren't aware of it. The last day to register to vote for new voters or new residents is Tuesday, October 11th at 5 p.m. Write-in candidate deadline to file a declaration of intent form by 4 p.m. on Friday, October 28th. Absentee ballots for the November 8th election will be available in the clerk's office beginning Wednesday, September 28th. Sample ballots will also be available at that time. Voters who applied for their November ballot at the same time as they applied for their August ballot should expect to see their ballot delivered by mail beginning the first week of October. And finally, absentee ballots may be obtained by mail until 2 p.m. on Saturday. That's typo there. It says November 5th, but it's, what's the, November 4th. Yeah. So absentee ballots, no, it's, there's the 5th.
Monday is the 6th. Monday.
Okay, so yeah, that doesn't seem right to me. Maybe it's because I'm thinking of the 8th. Okay, so absentee ballots may be obtained by mail until 2 p.m. on Saturday, November 5th. The clerk's office will be open that day from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's it for the clerk's report.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Ranka. Mr.
Thank you. You bet.
Okay.
The August-September financial report is available on my website. We continue to collect taxes, late taxes through September 30th at a 1% penalty. As of the end of the month, wow, that thing went back to work.
Wow. Who was that? Who was that?
They will collect at a rate of 1% per month until they go to Wayne County for taxes. We've collected 95% of our 2016 summer tax rolls. That's all I have.
Well done. Thank you, sir. Move on to trustee reports. Ms. Smith.
No report this evening. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Malvesto.
Yes, sir. First off, on a personal note, I drive East River Road 7 o'clock almost every morning or just before. Joggers, you're wearing dark clothes, you're impossible to see. Please wear some reflective clothing. It's going to make a big difference. Another issue involving fire, there seems to be some confusion, especially at intersections with oncoming rescue wagons or fire trucks. I'm being asked to just instruct you, pull to the far right. A fire truck is not going to pass you on the right side, so merely stopping in the lane that you're in and expecting the truck to go around to the right of you, it's not going to happen. Please pull off to the far right. Give your rescue vehicles, either the ambulances or the fire or the police, clearance so they can get by you without obstruction. To date, number of calls that have been made, there have been 405 rescue calls to date. There have been an additional 80 calls for fire. That puts us at 485 calls for the year. Puts us probably going to put us well over 650 calls for the total year. That's our volunteer fire department in action. These boys are very active. They're tired. They won't admit that they're getting run down, but it does take a toll on them. They're very dedicated to what they do. This coming Sunday, October 2nd, there's going to be a fire open house. It's from noon till, what was that time, Chief? Noon to 4. So please come on down, bring all the kids, hot dogs. They can climb up on the fire trucks, have a good time. It's a real good public event. And Director Boyd, I know you got something going in October at the Centennial Farm. Did you want to speak to that? I just don't have the details in front of me.
Fall Festival.
You do a better job than I would.
Thank you. Yep, Fall Festival is Saturday, October 8th from, now you're putting me on the spot here. I believe it's from noon to 4 over at the farm. It's $4 in advance, $5 at the door. There's cider and donuts and face painting and music and a petting farm and pumpkins for the kids. So a little bit of everything, just celebrating the fall harvest. So hopefully everyone will come.
Is there any farmers market or anything coming up that?
At the festival?
Yeah, anything like that? No.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And then I guess just another little reminder, I don't know if you're going to do it, Supervisor Loftus, but since I'm up here, this Saturday, the rededication of the Playscape.
Yep.
It's 25th anniversary this Saturday, 2 o'clock at the Playscape. There'll be a little ceremony and little celebration of rededicating the Playscape.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyd. I just called the event up on my Grosse Ile Connect app. Went to it instantly under events. And let's see. Fall Festival. And as pointed out, it's October 8th from 1 till 4. When is it? Is it 1 till 4? Okay, cost $5 at the door, $4 tickets in advance. Working tickets available. Rec office and online. Okay. So there you go. Download the app. Everything's right there. You saw how long it took me to find it. Tom,
That's it. I'm not picking on the joggers. I just that.
Oh no,
I
absolutely.
See you and yeah, you're impossible to see if you don't have anything reflective on. I'm sorry. It's just for your safety and obviously for ours. Thank you.
Get flashing LED lights for about $2. Clip them on. Don't get squashed.
Everything and anything will help.
Yeah, Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Not a whole lot. Our next DPS meeting is in October, second Tuesday of October. There's no ZBA meeting this month again, which I applaud everybody for that. Beginning next week, October 3rd, we're going to start our fall water main flushing and fire hydrant inspections. That work will be done between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., and the program's expected to last about 4 weeks. So if you see somebody around your fire hydrant out in your yard, that's what they're doing. And that's it.
When does that flushing start?
It starts Monday, October 3rd.
Okay, we'll get that up. We'll get that on the website and the notifications.
They'll
also
be doing it from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Sorty, Township, nice and quiet, huh? Okay. Township manager had to step out. Okay, I guess it's me. Whole lot to cover. It's just seems everything gets real busy this time of year. And normally Carol provides me with things she wants to see updated. This time it's from Margie, so we might cover a little more territory. Reiterating the Playscape celebration, 1991. Some of us were there. It was hard work, but we got it done. Dine Out for Music will be held at Lloyd's on Monday, October the 3rd. Come dine and support Grosse Ile Music Boosters fundraiser that day. Homecoming Parade on Macomb Street, Friday, October 7th at 4:30 p.m. Homecoming games, 7 p.m. that evening also. October 8th, the Fall Festival. We discussed that. And the animal shelters also have an open house at the same time. It'll be a lot of fun. Okay, Senior Oktoberfest Luncheon is Wednesday, October the 12th at 12:30 p.m. Good food, friends, live entertainment, chance to win raffle prizes, Centennial Farm in the Activities Room. Advance tickets only, $10 a person. I'll get ahead of you, Mr. Clark. Dump the Junk at DPS, October 15th and 16th, 9 to 4. Woody will fill us in on what you can and cannot, please. You'll give us some of the details. Anyway, there's a flyer in back for that as a reminder, but yeah, as Margie says, find your treasure and dump your unwanted stuff. Household hazardous waste, again, Wayne County, October 8th at Wayne County DPS. Let's see, Wayne DPS, 21100 North Line Road in Taylor. I don't have there's a flyer for that, but that's where you can get rid of almost anything. Okay, and then stuff a little closer to home, and so kind of what I've been doing, but it affects all of us. On Wednesday, on the 14th of September, and I put this out on Facebook for those who didn't see it, the graduation ceremony for the 33rd District Sobriety Court. This is just an incredibly intense rehabilitation program. 2 years of counseling, testing, and meetings. These are people who can't seem to get their act together and are going to either be in jail or dead, or just a lost citizen. 5 graduating this year are now some very focused people. They've turned their lives around, and their stories, their turnaround stories, they're impressive. And this is important to me, first of all, because it's rehabilitating people under a very strict regimen. One of the founders of our 33rd District Court is our own Detective Ken Pellin. So, thank him. Thank you, Ken, you've made a difference. Okay, the next day, Derek Thiel from, he's a Gibraltar City Administrator now, used to be ours. Tim Thompson, our Building Inspector, and I attended a FEMA workshop in Frenchtown Township. The short version, FEMA is adding, for your floodplain considerations, FEMA is now adding wave heights to their base flood elevations. The good news for us is Grosse Ile was not affected by this wave height addendum. Think of high winds bringing waves ashore, much higher than your normal flood elevation coming in and just damaging buildings and whatnot, personal property. Good news is we weren't affected by it. Bad news is part of Gibraltar was, but I'll let Derek work on that. It's amending the FEMA flood maps, which affects your flood insurance if you happen to have it. It'd be a long process, but it looks like our base flood elevation numbers are going to be lowered a little bit. So those of you who have flood insurance may no longer require it, and I'll keep you advised as this develops. It was pretty dry, basically, but bad choice of words. It was tedious. It's a long process, but I'll keep you advised as things develop. The Guidance Center, and I'm bringing this up because it's so well supported by Grosse Ile. The Guidance Center's annual Grape Expectations fundraiser. It supports the Kids Talk Children's Advocacy Center, and I got to emphasize, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need such a facility. The Advocacy Center shepherds abused children through both the justice system, helps reintroduce them to society. Again, some of their stories are just too horrible to comprehend. If you hear some, you won't leave with a dry eye. But like last year, I was extremely proud of the number of Grosse Ile residents who were there. This year they raised almost $70,000, $30,000 more than last year. It supports the Advocacy Center, and Chief and I talked about this, but when there are abuse charges, when there's the despicable in-family fighting and the children are held hostage, they end up for a while in the justice system. And originally they'd been examined, cross-examined, and interrogated by prosecuting and defense attorneys. I mean, they have to because that's the way the justice system works, but at least in this part of Michigan, the Kids Talk, the Advocacy Center, it's a safe, home-like environment. They're interviewed in a more family-type setting by professional interviewers, and the questions are given to the interviewer by both sides, and the results are accepted by the courts, and the children aren't dragged in front of the courts and the cameras and everything else. And it's just, again, I wish we didn't have to have it. Those of you who donated, participated, lots of Grosse Ile residents, Grosse Ile Golf and Country Club and West Shore also contributed. Thank you. You have made a difference. And let's see, we had the 300 cyclists Sunday for the Tour de Ile. So those of you, Grosse Ile Motors, who were courteous and kind and did not run over any cyclists, because there were a lot of them, thank you for making the people feel welcome. Great time. It's become a destination event for, again, what I call the serious cyclists and the relaxed people like me. And Grosse Ile Rotary and all the volunteers, thanks for making what a great event it was. And I want to mention, there it is, Great Catsby. Fundraiser for the animal shelter and Tails. Diamond Jack was sold out that night. Lots of folks in Gatsby attire. Andrew Johnson, Howlin' Mercy playing on the promenade deck. Okay, my vote, for what it's worth, for best dressed was Chief Bill Barron and Margaret. They were in gangsta attire, and Gary Jones was pretty good, too. When we get the final results on how successful it was, I'll let Julie get that out to you, but it was a great time, and she's going to need a bigger boat next year. That concludes my report.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
This coming Monday's meeting on the 3rd?
Yes.
It'll be 7:30?
There is an event scheduled here for 7, a scout presentation. Do we want, I can ask her to move that? Do we want to have it earlier, later? What's the consensus?
Could we do it before then?
We could do it.
6 o'clock?
We could do it at 6. Okay.
Fine with me.
6. Okay. The supervisor then is hereby calling a special meeting. And we'll post it, of course, but calling a special meeting for October the 3rd at 6 p.m. One topic only, the POAM contract. And that will be posted. That then concludes my supervisor's report. And with that, we'll open it to public comment. So usual rules, Mr. Clark, who knows the rules.
Okay, Woody Clark, Park Lane, legal fees.
On the warrant list dated September 22nd, 2016, legal fees to O'Reilly Rensselaer in the amount of $3,025.
What is the cost of the playscape money?
The total
we paid, what, $20,000?
No, the attorney fees for O'Reilly Rensselaer, who for the Vortex contract was $3,197.
That's on top of the 20,000.
That is correct.
So it's 23,000 now.
Correct.
That's a lot cheaper than 120,000. On Mr. Balvesto's question about the people running out here with dark clothes on, I almost got one the other night coming up from Grays Drive. He was on the water side coming at me. I have a car coming at me. Don't make me choose. You're going to lose. Okay, next is the dump the junk. 15th and 16th. Most of you know what to bring and what not to bring, but don't bring no bricks, stones, cement. We will not take it. We'll turn you around. They're having that thing on the 8th, right? You mentioned the 8th about the electrical?
Yeah,
up in
the Wayne County.
Wayne County?
Yes.
They're having that up there. You want to take your, but you can take the TV to the street.
You can, but it goes in a landfill, and it's probably not the best way to just. I mean, from an environmental, you can.
Okay, but if
your best bet's to take it over.
You don't want to take it up there, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Clark. Yeah, and that is on October 8th, 8 p.m. to 2 p.m., Wayne County Community College District, Downriver Campus, 21,000 North Lide Road, Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Other public comment? Mr. Pilkington.
Good evening, Craig Pilkington, 27985 South Point. First up is the agenda for tonight's meeting wasn't published on Minutes on Demand until this afternoon. And,
pardon?
I'm sorry. And it would be nice if it was available. I was glad to see the entire board packet actually published, although I didn't have much time to go over the proposed POAM contract either, which I think because it affects so many of us that all the taxpayers here, the public would like to be able to see that as well and to be able to ask questions. And I just would ask, as you said, if it was an oversight. I mean, if we can get it into the News Herald on September 20th, and they publish it on the 21st and the, classifies advertising, I think we should be able to get it out to the public on Minutes on Demand by the 26th. The other thing is, in conjunction with that, we've got a tremendous number of minutes and agendas for other commissions that are certainly not up to date, not published. And it would be great, just a suggestion, and on behalf of the public who might be interested, might like to get on these commissions and know what's going on in their township, if you could get those up to date. Certainly there are some commissions that have no minutes attached to them. And I'm sure that's got to be an oversight, because I'm sure the board would like to have the voters of the township engaged. I have another question relative to the contract, and it's only because I just got to see this late. Is there a cost of living adjustment that's currently incorporated into the POAM contract? I'm sorry?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a 2.5 non-compounded.
I'm sorry?
2.5% non-compounded.
Okay, so we've got 2.5% annual?
Yes, non-compounded.
Okay,
this is-
and then we've got and then we're looking at 1.75% step increases annually for 6 years?
Correct.
Okay. Has anybody modeled this to determine what kind of an impact this is going to have on the long-term unfunded liability and our ability to reduce that from the, many, many millions of dollars that we owe as taxpayers?
We have looked at it with the other two organizations because we do not have compounding anymore with the administrative and with management. The reason for that is because we get Social Security. There is an issue with the police department that they don't get any Social Security, so that we could not negotiate it out of the contract.
Okay, so I'm not sure that answers the question. If this is not the time or place, please tell me. I'm trying to figure out whether I think total unfunded liabilities relative to pensions, and then in addition to the OPEB, we're somewhere in the 29 million. No, what are we at if you take both of them in the aggregate?
For the pension is 12 million unfunded.
Pension is what's OPEB as projected?
Oh, the health care? It's
Yes.
15.
Okay, so we've got 27 million in the aggregate. Okay, at the end of this contract, are we going to see reductions in that on an annual basis? And then what are those? What could we expect at the end of 6 years? If we're 12 million now, what could we expect in savings at the end of?
It's all
6
based
years?
on actuarial. We could do it on I don't have those numbers available to me. It's all based on actuarials. They said it was going forward that we were going from 38% to 10.47% is what we're going to be paying in. And it should be covered because there will not be unfunded liability because people would have to work so long that it's probably not going to exist. This isn't going to go away overnight. It didn't happen overnight. But we did take steps across the board for the last several years. Our health care liability is capped out because we got the hard cap, and our pension liability has now been turned around slowly. It's not going to happen overnight. But
no, I applaud you.
We are taking steps in both those directions.
And I applaud you, and I applaud the chief and the department and the board. Although I certainly agree this evening with the stance that trustees Malvesto and Budney and Smith took on this, and I think you want to understand what you're voting on. And it seems to me the last time this came to this board, you had the same remarks from people saying we'd like to know what we're voting on. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pilkington. Mr. Treasurer.
I just want to make a comment about that. There's been 14 changes to the existing contract, which has been in place for 5 years?
3 years. We were 3 in, and then we...
So 98.9% of the contract that we're agreeing on was available to read, with 15 changes being made. Now, I don't think that's an oversight by Dale or anybody. If any board member here wanted to read that, it was certainly available for them to read the other 98% and then question the 15% or 0.5% of the changes that were made. So I have a real issue with this because we're dragging out something that I can tell you Monday I know what's going to happen. Nobody's trying to hide anything from the public or keep anything concealed from anybody. It's been available. It is available. All you need to do is go after it to find it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Any other comment from the public present? All right, with none offered, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Trustee Budney?
Support.
Clerk Ranka. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Call the meeting adjourned at, let's make it 8:55. Good night, everyone. If you're going to go jog.